This is going to be everything we know about Starfield so far. Then I'll give my take on certain aspects. Some good and some bad, some concerning, but more just questions. So if you have been keeping up with all the things Starfield, maybe even camped outside Todd Howard's home, seriously, don't do that, it's a bit creepy, then jump ahead to the My Thoughts section. But I have combed through all the public content to put this together. So if you like the video, or you just want to give me a C- for effort, then hit the thumbs up. This video isn't going to focus on leaks or leakers, but instead all the different information that has come from Bethesda sources, interviews, and social media. As for why this video isn't going to focus on leaks, has to do with typically they are uncredible. Now, there was a leaker over the previous several years dropping information about Starfield, but nobody knew to take this leaker seriously until recently. Pretty much all of what that leaker posted over the previous few years has now already been confirmed through official sources. So no point even talking about the leaks. So let's get into what is worth talking about. In an interview, Howard talked about how much of a backstory and lore they needed to develop, which, to be pretty honest, it sounded very interesting. What we need to keep in mind is this is the first new IP from Bethesda in roughly 25 years. Many of the games that they have been making have been sequels and have already had their established identities. You know, their feel and pace. So reading into the thought process and time that went into the history of the Starfield universe was very interesting. Starfield was announced at E3 2018, and the trailer they showed off is what you see on screen now. Then there was nothing new about Starfield for 3 years, not until E3 of 2021. But something major happened before then. Microsoft announced it was going to acquire Zenimax, which was the parent company of Bethesda, on the 21st of September 2020. I mention this because when Starfield was first announced, it was going to be on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. But at E3 of 2021, they showed off the first in-game footage. A character walks onto a ship, goes up a ladder, puts down a weapon, looks like an SMG of some kind, hits a few buttons, sits down in the captain chair, and takes off. Wasn't anything amazing, except the graphics look really crisp. We got a release date, which was November 11, 2022, and we got our first look at our companion, Vasco. More on Vasco a little bit later. But something else was noticed at the end of the video. PlayStation was no longer listed with PC and Xbox. Sounds like Microsoft and Phil Spencer pulled rank. I remember seeing this news and many of the Bethesda team members were not happy about this. I don't like this at all, and I play on Xbox. But it is what it is. Console exclusives have been around well before Starfield, and they're probably going to be around well after Starfield. By the way, if you do want to come by my Xbox stream and talk about Starfield stuff, come on. If anything new comes out, we'll be talking about it there. After the 2021 E3, Bethesda started putting out ViDocs every couple months or so. The first 3 were about 3 of the 4 large cities in Starfield. The 4th city remains a mystery as of this video, and probably will remain so until the game launches. The 3 cities we know of so far are Neon, Akila, and New Atlantis. Neon is on an aquatic world and was built by the Xenofresh Corporation. Neon was built as a giant fishing platform, but once a fish was discovered to have psychotropic properties, they focused primarily on selling the drug. Akila City is the capital city of the Freestar Collective, which is a confederation of 3 star systems. The people that live at Akila City have strong beliefs around freedom and individuality. The interesting aspect here is that Akila is surrounded by high walls protecting the city from Ashta. Ashta is a predator hybrid between a wolf and a velociraptor. I'll cover this more in my thoughts, but sounds great. Then there's going to be New Atlantis, the capital city of the United Colonies, or UC. The UC is going to be the most powerful organization in the game. It will be curious to see what they are like if we get on their bad side. But New Atlantis is going to be the most diverse city and will also be the largest city, not just in Starfield, but in all of Bethesda's games. And will have all the typical vendors and services you would expect. Constellation is also going to be located here, which early in the story, we will be invited to join. The next several ViDocs they put out were about the studio, the teamwork, and what they want to get out of Starfield. I'm not going to go into a ton of information, but all the links are below if you want to go check out the details yourself. What I gathered from these ViDocs though, was how much flexibility the player is going to have in playing their game, or writing their own story, as they say, and being immersed in the universe is highly important. I think that is why most people play games, just getting lost in the game and escaping reality. But there is 2 ViDocs during this time that I want to give a little more attention to. The first one is the settled systems, which mentions the Starfield universe is going to be around a 50 light year radius around our solar system, Sol. The game is set in 2330, and 20 years before that, the colony wars happened between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective. But they are at peace now. But don't worry, there are still plenty of space bad guys in the form of ecliptic mercenaries, Crimson Fleet, violent spacers, and what is a world without fanatic religious people? In Starfield, they will be known as the House Varun. There are probably more bad guy factions that we haven't been told about, and they are just saving those for you to discover. The other ViDoc I wanted to focus on from this time is Meet Vasco.
Hello.
They mentioned that Vasco is one of their favorite companions in the game, implying there will be more companions, plural. Vasco is an expeditionary robot that is from Constellation. So we will most likely get Vasco once we get to Constellation in the campaign. Vasco seems to be a pretty balanced robot, being able to take on many different aspects of our journey exploring. My real question here, is Vasco customizable? You know, more firepower, more payload capacity, etc. I doubt the robot is, but it would be amazing if they made it happen. Modders, do your Bethesda thing, let's get it going. Back on May the 12th, Bethesda made an announcement that it was going to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. So as of this video, we do not have a specific release date. We just have a window. I'd imagine what happened was Phil Spencer and Xbox said the game needs to be super polished if Starfield is going to be released as a console exclusive. Because when you buy a studio for $7.5 billion and you make the studio's first major release after the acquisition a console exclusive, it better be the best experience ever. The Xbox team has set Starfield up to be a major reason to buy an Xbox. It's also going to be on Xbox Game Pass at launch. Now, let's get into the meat of what we know about Starfield with the gameplay reveal that happened on June the 12th. There are going to be over 100 star systems and over 1,000 planets. I'm curious if moons are also counted in the numbers, and I'm hoping not. You will not be able to land on all planets, and some planets are going to be boring wastelands. They really wanted to replicate what you would find in space into Starfield. Some planets are just going to be ice balls. It is what it is. Howard said in an interview that the 2 areas they started with were procedural generation for the different worlds and spaceship combat. He also mentioned spaceship combat is a little slower paced. It's going to feel more like a mech warrior, but not that slow. He didn't want it to be all twitchy. You will be able to disable, dock, board, and steal other ships. Awesome.
According to the scanners, the abandoned research facility is in this direction.
Here we can see that we will be able to scan objects to be able to get a complete profile on said object. On the left side, we can see how much of this planet, or moon in this case, the player has surveyed. There are going to be 3 groups of objects on any planet, and they are resources, fauna, and flora. Resources are going to be your typical iron, carbon, water, etc. For those that don't know, fauna is going to be wildlife, and flora is going to be your plants. So this dust root is going to be under flora, and the player is only scanned 13%. Other things that we can see here is basic info about the planet or moon is on the bottom left with temp, O2, and gravity. It will be interesting to see if on lower gravity planets we can jump higher. Would be cool if they pulled that off, but doubtful. At the bottom center, we can see there will be a photo mode. Cool for those bragging moments of, look what I found. Then the bottom right has the typical health bar, weapon info, and grenades. Be curious to see what all the different kinds of grenades they come up with. As we carry on, it's interesting to see wildlife, but the fauna for this moon had a 0. Curious as to what counts and what doesn't, I guess. Then we see the player use his cutter tool to mine some iron. I really like how this game looks so far. It looks smooth, shadows look really good, and long distances look very nice as well. As we make our way down to this base, we come across a ship that we can steal, remember?
It would appear that pirates of the Crimson Fleet are using the facility.
We see the ammo counter on the weapon, which is nice for those that prefer to go with no HUD. Then we actually get our first look at combat, which looks pretty good.
Rogan sets up on the roof. No one's getting through. Hey, there you are. We've got company. Opening fire. Take that guy down, huh?
And let's be honest, we are not interested in Starfield for the pinnacle first-person shooter experience. The player then makes their way to a weapon case that they have to hack with a digipick. And there is a security level of novice attached to this one. So expect harder ones in the game, with some being unlocked if you only have certain character perks or traits. More on character stuff later. As the player makes their way outside, we see a little more combat, but with the weapon that was just picked up, which seems to be a semi-auto rifle, and then a ship flies in.
You're gonna pay for that!
Oh, This part is cool. The player hits the jetpack and sends the enemy flying, then explodes, and then you see the enemy player keep going higher. Really cool that that is in the game.
After some initial encounters, you're invited to join Constellation, who, in the future the game is set in, are the last group of space explorers. To meet them, you'll head to the capital city of New Atlantis.
We then see the player open a door with their fancy identification watch. And we have a meeting with Constellation. This is where we learn about the main story for Starfield, which will have the player finding different artifacts around the universe to figure out what they mean and what's out there.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about. We're all here because we're committed to the biggest question of all. What's out there? These artifacts could be everything we've been looking for. As to what they are, what they're building, you'll be part of solving that puzzle now.
So, you found something?
A new guy found it.
You dug up the artifact, right? That means you saw it. The visions?
The artifact you found appears to be one of many, scattered across the galaxy. If we can find more, we can unlock their secrets.
Beautiful, isn't it? The man who sold me this told me that it spoke to him.
Of course, the settled systems is full of groups with other priorities.
That's the Crimson Fleet!
Everybody get ready!
The fleet doesn't follow the rules. Agree to work for UCC staff. And together, we take down these cutthroat pirates.
We're not just here to shoot the bad guys. We're peacekeepers. We protect the people of the Free Star Collective.
When you sign up with the Crimson Fleet, no one quits. The only way out is death.
The path ahead may be dangerous.
We also see some zero gravity combat, which is cool.
But we are not stopping.
Most Dusties don't even make it this far.
Because whatever lies at the end of this road will change humanity forever.
That gives you a look at the stories in Starfield. But ultimately, it's not our story. It's the story you create by who you are and the choices you make. And that starts with character creation.
Then we get a sweet look at the character creation screen. Looks like you will pick your genetics, body and face customization, and then your background and special traits. Character creation seems to be quite extensive, which I know some players will really enjoy that. Me, well, I typically don't care too much about character creation. Your background and traits are what I'm more into, as they will define the experience of playing Starfield. So each background will have 3 starting skills, and there will be around 20 backgrounds in the game. Then you can pick 3 traits, with some traits canceling others you could possibly pick. So for example, you can't have introvert and extrovert. You can even start with a house. So I'm curious to see if or how you can acquire other homes. Then we get a shot of the skill system with what looks like the 5 main trees as physical, social, combat, science, and tech. We can see how, as we play the game, we will unlock skills naturally with how we play, making us stronger in those areas. Seems like we might even have to acquire a skill before we could progress it in the skill tree.
And there's deep crafting systems.
Oh boy, we get to check out crafting. There are research projects you can do, and you can craft what seems like a great number of different mods. This all looks great, but we don't get an extensive look at how deep it is, but they have said there is a lot there.
Crafting weapon mods needed to survive.
Next, we get a look at building outposts and the resource management parts of the game. And if you have played other building or resource games, you know how monotonous it could be. So you can hire crew to help out on your outpost or on your ship. From what they showed off, I'm really excited for how simple it looks. Speaking of your ship, it will be yours, as you will be able to choose crew members and customize any and all aspects of your ship. There will be a top-down view design screen, also for outpost building, and you will be able to expand your ship's capabilities as you continue to play. Like I mentioned earlier, you will be flying ships, but there is no direct flight between planetary atmosphere and space. There will be a loading zone. They made the decision early on that it wasn't worth the engineering effort to justify it for the player experience. They wanted to focus on an amazing surf experience and an amazing space experience. I like this approach because when I played Elite Dangerous, and I still do from time to time, I didn't care for the mini game transition between space and the atmosphere. Then they show off some space flight and combat. The interesting things to know here is you will need to manage your power systems on the left side of the cockpit as you are in combat. And combat is something that can start as quickly as it takes enemies to warp in. They have said that the AI will come in on you, so you need to be on your toes.
We can't wait for all of you to experience the game. Thanks again for being with us today, and thanks for all the support you've given us over the decades, especially on this game. It's been an incredible journey for us making it, but we know that's really only the beginning, for it's when all of you play it that the real journey begins.
That's pretty much everything we know about Starfield. There is going to be support after the launch with extra DLC, expansions, and mod support. So I'm really excited to see what the community comes up with. As for my thoughts, well, I think the game looks great. What you are going to be able to do in Starfield is explore, base build, resource manage, first-person shooter combat, spaceship combat, monster hunt, build ships, and there is supposed to be the most extensive story they have ever designed. Yep, sign me up. If you're wanting a more true experience in those areas, then Starfield probably isn't going to be your jam. It sucks for PlayStation gamers, but it will also be available from the cloud. So that will probably be your cheapest way to access Starfield if you are on PlayStation. Now, when they showed off the 0G shooting, which was a super short clip, I was hoping they would get this right and the person shooting would fly backwards into the wall. Howard had said they grounded themselves as much into reality as they could. But I was kind of bummed a little. It is just a game after all, but still would have been such a cool moment to show off. A shooter and 0G flying backwards into a wall. I know they have on jetpacks, but there's no jolt in the slightest. It's like they're on the ground. This is probably my only letdown so far. I'm really hoping for some crazy monster hunting type moments, or planets that you land on that are so hostile with fauna that you have to leave. It's just too difficult to stay. Then you invite your buddies, Stealthy, Scion, Diet, and you go back to the surface and you kick some alien butt. You just make sure Diet goes first because, well, he's slow. But I really hope they have high difficulty planets to be on. And then, are they even worth being on? Do they even have valuable resources to make it worth being there? Really hopeful to see caves and maybe even underwater caves. That leads me to another question I have. Is this game going to be single player, co-op, or multiplayer? Howard has said it will be single player focused. That doesn't mean single player only. So, will it be co-op or multiplayer? Not being able to play a game like this with friends would be a serious letdown. Lastly, for spaceship building, what are all the different roles we can have with our ships? Combat focus, storage focus, exploring focus. What about space mining? Since they say we start out as a miner. Is it going to be beneficial to design my ship to carry as much tonnage as possible from my outpost to market? They did say combat-wise, your choices in how you design your ship matter, with shields and weapons. Also, will we be able to house or store multiple ships? I know these questions probably won't be answered until we start playing the game, but I am really curious. Okay, so now you are caught up on everything Starfield to this point in time. I'm really excited to play this game and to see how far they take this new IP into the future. What about Starfield are you most interested in? And do you have any concerns? Let me know down in the comments. I have a Discord below and we'll be making new content on anything about Starfield. If you want to come by my stream and chat about Starfield stuff, come on. As for now, all we can do is wait for
what's